This week's episode is brought to you by Joby Lind and Il Barto. Thank you, Joby Lind and Il Barto. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that helps keep our army of remote-controlled robot drones stocked with enough mercury and tungsten pellets to keep bombarding the fourth-dimensional reptilian motherships with highly concentrated artificial gamma spectrum death beams, which makes them too amorous to focus on daily functions. If you'd like to help us keep the reptilian overlords properly distracted from their nefarious doings, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the second half of this episode, but every single one of our episodes that are so old I'm embarrassed to have you listen to all of them. But that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality, decapitation-proof vinyl sticker of our highly controversial Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and you'll instantly be given the secret keys to our Discord server where Heka is working out the plans for her perpetual motion magnet motor. In this week's episode, we arrive at the exciting conclusion of Tesla's long and accomplished life. In the free section of the show, we focus on Tesla's exotic experiments following his victory in the War of the Currents, which include the invention of the radio, X-ray, and military drone technology that earned him the title Father of the Wireless. We visit his infamous lightning-producing laboratory in Colorado and go over the schematics for one of his many fabled doomsday devices, the earthquake machine. In the extended episode, we discuss his battle with the Titan JP Morgan over unlimited wireless power, his legendary Wardenclyffe lab, his contribution to aerospace, secret death ray machine that he may not have sold to the Soviets, Donald Trump time travel conspiracy, and most importantly, his strange love of pigeons. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Dangerous surge of electricity walks into a bar. The barman says, "Why the long phase?"
That's it, right? That's the joke?
You're a unit of electrical energy, Harry! I'm a what? The superconductor left without resistance. I had to create a report on wind energy. It was a breeze.
Nice.
Why is wind power popular?
Why?
Because it has a lot of fans. Hello everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you that we plan to electrify the Earth's core with enough charge to power our cars, laptops, and personal stimulation devices wirelessly with gargantuan towers that shoot lightning hundreds of feet into the air. Nay, we unleash an army of semi-sentient, time-traveling robots equipped with particle accelerator death rays to rewrite history and bring an end to war forever. Because this week, we're wrapping up our 3-part series on the American-Serbian father of the wireless, Nikola Tesla, and the strange doomsday devices he may or may not have created. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as the Hack Rabbit. I am joined this week by the monopolizer of metamaterials, Mari Sama.
Yo.
The magistrate of metaphoric mathematics, Malachor 5.
I'm in Globeki Tepe shirtless, eating a country fried steak, and war is all I think about.
Wow. And the hot hermetic huntress, Heka Astra.
Hello.
As a child in Europe, Tesla had never dreamt of hobnobbing with millionaires or performing magic on stage to enchant captive audiences. And yet, in mastering these skills, he had opened the door to not just change the world for the better, but was quickly culminating in an opportunity to accomplish something he had fantasized about as a kid, tapping the awesome power of America's Niagara Falls. After using his devices to power Chicago's 1893 World's Fair, alongside his subsequent mind-melting demonstration therein, the world had become Tesla's oyster, and basking in the glow alongside George Westinghouse, the pair had little trouble securing the lion's share of contracts to transform the majestic Niagara Falls into a gargantuan alternating current power station, the size and scope of which was soon to baffle the world. When Edward Dean Adams, a respected engineer and investment banker with close ties to JP Morgan, asked Tesla for advice how to tap the falls, Tesla replied, "It would be entirely impossible for any system to compete with my ideally simple one." Later, when he asked Tesla if he would support Lord Kelvin's proposed direct current system, he replied frankly, "How disadvantageous, if not fatal to your enterprise such a plan would be. But I do not think it possible that your engineers could seriously consider such a proposition of this kind." Adams eventually found himself nodding along and granted Westinghouse contracts with fair hope that electrical engineers could produce apparatus much larger in size than had ever been built, and that new types of which were then hardly beyond the stage of experiment would prove successful. This meant diverting the river's rushing waters into 3 8-foot wide penstocks to spin the wheels of gigantic 29-ton turbines, the largest the world had ever seen. The turbines would whirl attached steel shafts that would rotate the 2 electrical generators on the project's main floor, referred to appropriately as the Cathedral of Power. When Westinghouse finally flipped the switch on November 16, 1896, the world would change forever as the power being generated at Niagara Falls began to run Buffalo's streetcars and light its streets. In just a few weeks, this new Tesla Westinghouse system was powering factories and high-temperature electric furnaces that would enable the commercial production of lightweight aluminum and hard carborundum, which in turn allowed the creation of what Scientific American called many absolutely or commercially new products. In essence, Tesla was now accomplishing another feat well known of stage magicians, the appearance of novel or impossible objects, except that Tesla had done it through true wizardry. In no time at all, the Niagara power plant would be electrifying factories and street lights as far as New York. When speaking in Buffalo on the achievement, amidst great fanfare, Tesla emphasized the project's primary benefit to humanity was not in the accumulation of material wealth, but instead, it was a moral victory, which, as he put it, signifies the subjugation of natural forces to the service of man, the discontinuance of barbarous methods, the relieving of millions from want and suffering. Even science fiction writer H.G. Wells expressed wonder at the Niagara project. The soft humming turbines, he wrote,
are altogether noble masses of machinery, huge black slumbering monsters. There's no clangor, no racket. All these great things are as silent, as wonderfully made, as the heart of a living body, and stouter and stronger than that. I fell into a daydream of the coming power of men, and how that power may be used by them.
When you look at the images from the old Niagara power plant, especially the Cathedral of Power, you know, it doesn't look cramped. It doesn't look like a terrible place to be. The machines seem really well spaced apart. It's very neat and orderly. They have big, huge windows. It's futuristic in its own way. Even still, like, I feel like today, if you had that, it would be like machine and gray and orange and hard hat. It would not be like pinky in the air looking the way it used to.
Oh, that's what I love about it. It's dirty work. This is like before it was easy to just turn and flip a switch. It's like, motherfucker, had to build the goddamn thing.
They built it nice. In many ways, Tesla's work on the matter was done. He had brought the benefits of alternating current to the world, and having proved its superiority, the electric industry would largely only advance incrementally. Most notably, the genius Samuel Insull worked toward the creation of an energy grid, which made electricity accessible to the masses by lowering costs and raising availability, which expanded profit potential well beyond the limited scope of selling power to the wealthy. But Tesla was not interested in marketing power. He lusted for new and exotic forms, which he immediately commenced researching in his New York lab.
It's almost like at a baseline, everybody just needs access to this energy. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, let me just give it to everybody and let's evolve and build and create new electronic things.
That's what Tesla wanted. He prophesied that it would become like a utility, which is how we think of it today. Like, everyone needs power. If you don't have power, well, you're kind of screwed. And by Tesla's old age, many communities that didn't even have running water and still used outhouses, they too had power. And partially this was because of Samuel Insull. But like in terms of big radical changes, that was it. Like Tesla made it the way it is, and all we've done is bootstrap it up and make it more widespread and more available and more stable, etc., etc.
Yeah, he set a new bar for mankind. We have power now. We have electricity.
And then once that was done, he's like, okay, I did my thing. I accomplished my childhood dream. Now I'm gonna go faff around with this new crazy stuff. So while Tesla had learned about high-frequency current in Europe years earlier and had been wirelessly making gas tubes glow when placed between 2 charged panels, often blowing audiences' minds with them, he wanted to take things a step further. Tesla, and accurately so, was envisioning a future where energy or information could be sent at great distances without the use of costly copper wires. Tesla knew that these ideas would sound, well, a little wacky to most people. His friends even warned him that he should probably cool it on the wireless stuff if he wanted to attract wealthy investors, but he could not hold back when speaking to Joseph Pulitzer's New York World, saying,
"You would think me a dreamer and very far gone if I should tell you what I really hope for, but I can tell you that I look forward with absolute confidence to sending messages through the earth without any wires. I have also great hopes of transmitting electric force in the same way without wires.
So not just text messages, but something to power your laptop, too, without wires.
Like feet pics.
Powered by feet pics.
Who's gonna tickle all these feet? Kevin Spacey's gonna tickle all these feet.
Ew.
I told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable of.
Oh, no.
He could play Nikola Tesla.
God, no.
No.
No, David Bowie was better. Imagine David Bowie just sticking a whole pigeon in his mouth.
I think David Bowie did that. I think he did.
He's
did
probably
everything.
done everything once, yeah. Can't let Ozzy have all the fun. Now, as he was known to do when seized by an idea, Tesla became obsessed, and he studied the phenomena of vibration and sympathetic resonance voraciously, just like your weird crystal-waving ant. Before long, though, people began to spot Tesla around New York City carrying a small box, a receiver of sorts, composed of several capacitors, and an electromagnetic relay intended to intercept vibrations from an oscillating current produced by a transmitter located in his laboratory. In one case, he picked up signals as far as 1.3 miles away from atop the Gerlach Hotel, but the readings, well, they weren't consistent. The problem, he deduced, was slight changes in the speed of the steam engine powering the alternator, causing the signals to dip in and out. To combat this, he designed what is known as a reciprocating generator, but over the years, it came to be known as Tesla's earthquake machine.
Tesla's infamous earthquake machine had originally been conceptualized as a design for an oscillating, alternating current generator. He patented it in February of 1894, and this electromechanical oscillator was supposed to provide a constant frequency output utilizing an air spring mechanism and a piston cylinder. This meant that no matter the variation of the machine's steam pressure or electrical load, it would maintain a constant speed. The design of the generator was based on a sliding valve system, where steam would enter in and the pressure would move the piston up or down depending on the natural change of pressure from the steam. As the piston would move, the sliding valve would then also move from the pressure change, allowing steam to enter from the other side and return the piston to its former placement. So basically, steam was coming through a channel, moving the piston up to down and down to up. This slide valve design was further improved by instead creating L-shaped channels in the piston itself, and that made it so that the valve could be deleted since the piston would take on the reciprocating action that the sliding valve had. So he added exhaust pipes to this to relieve the pressure between the cycles, and that caused it to be self-repeating. The more steam pressure was utilized, the faster the speed of the piston. However, in order to maintain a specific RPM, he added an airtight cylinder with a plunger to the top of the shaft, which rose from the piston. And by adding that piece, Tesla had achieved his objective of having a constant speed regardless of the steam pressure. Since the intermittent pressure from the steam-powered device, it could only ever operate at the natural frequency of the air spring's vibration. Now, Tesla's design, it also passed the incoming steam around the air spring before traveling to the piston. So by doing this, he made it so that the air spring also acted as a flywheel. A flywheel is an engine part that looks like a wheel attached to a rotating shaft, and its function is basically to smooth out the delivery of power to a motor. So by doing this, he made it so that it would absorb heat from the air spring. When Tesla connected an electromagnetic generator to it, no current would flow through the output coils unless it was a closed circuit. With an open circuit, it would have no electromagnetic resistance, but once the circuit was closed, there would be electromagnetic resistance to the kinetic oscillations of the machine, meaning that the machine's frequency would drop as a response to said resistance. So Nikola combated this by adding variable capacitors, and a capacitor is a passive component that opposes a voltage change and stores energy in the form of an electric field. When he added these variable capacitors, he was able to set the phase difference angle to 0. And I know that sounds a bit confusing, but to summarize this, I think this essentially just means that he was able to make it so that the electromagnetic frequency of the generator's armature on top had as minimal of an effect as possible on the air spring's natural frequency below it, because he could sync their waves to have 0 difference in their length. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it's pretty genius, and if you look at the patent for it or watch videos on it, it's pretty ahead of his time, in my opinion.
You know, rockets are a lot easier to understand. Let's put it that way. This allowed Tesla's early radio transmitters to propagate a steady signal, but it also had other interesting side effects, which the Serbian inventor would experiment with. And by experiment, I of course mean mischief.
As for whether or not this device could cause an earthquake, that becomes a matter of resonance. Tesla had originally made this machine to operate at a frequency of 60 hertz, but ultimately he gave it the ability to have adjustable hertz. And if one object is forced into resonant vibrations at its natural frequency, it will vibrate in such a way that a standing wave pattern is formed. This wave pattern forms within the object. One example of this would be two tuning forks. When you strike one, its sound waves will hit the other in a way that the other will match the frequency of the first, and it'll make a harmonious sound. So if you take that example to something like a 7-story building, like the one that Tesla was in, if the vibration from Tesla's steam-powered machine matched the natural frequency of the building, then it would cause the building to resonate harmoniously. With each new synchronous wave that hits the object as it arrives back at its zenith points, the wave becomes amplified. So think of pushing a child on a swing, and each time they reach the farthest point in their return, you give them another push. It's kind of like that.
Until you yeet the baby.
Until you yeet the baby.
Kick the baby. Kick the baby.
So if Tesla's machine was set to a frequency which matched the building's natural hertz, the machine's waves would act just like this on the building, causing a resonant vibration. And in such a case, it could continue to increase the building's resonant amplitude enough to cause it to quake or unsettle bricks or even break windows.
Oh, it's like in the old movies and, pop culture when the lady is singing opera and she hits a sour note and then all the glass in the building shatters. That's exactly what you're talking
like
about.
that.
Precisely, yeah.
There's a lot of occult philosophy to talk about resonance and frequencies that interact in certain ways with each other.
Like the brown note?
Makes you poop yourself.
I think we're going to get there.
Hold your dookie, folks. It's coming.
So this device, this earthquake device, this machine, apparently Tesla decided to make a pocket-sized version of this mechanical oscillator, and it was about 7 inches long and weighing only 1 or 2 pounds.
Just like my penis.
Nice.
Whoa.
Phrasing.
They call it the earthquake machine.
No
Hey,
one's
earlier I
supposed to know that I call it that.
Earlier, I was talking about the coming power of men in a daydream. So, we're talking about 7 inches and a pound heavy here now. Ooh, it's getting steamy here.
Somebody call those pigeons.
So Tesla said that you could put this machine in your overcoat pocket, and apparently he experimented with this device in multiple locations. Once at a building under construction where he fastened it to the building, and it apparently caused a building to shake enough for the steel workers to evacuate. Another time he was at his laboratory, and it generated a resonance in multiple surrounding buildings. Apparently complaints were sent to the police, and Tesla claimed that as the speed grew, it started to resonate with the building his lab was in, causing several tons of machinery and equipment to shake and move. Then in a panic-stricken frenzy, he used a sledgehammer to smash the tiny machine before the police arrived.
Oh, man.
Oh, so he built a really strong dildo and it almost tore down the whole city.
It kind of.
Almost.
Yeah, he just put the vibration setting at the building's vibration and then,
Made the building and it all fell apart.
Don't yeet the baby out with the bathwater.
This is why we have the FCC now, by the way, because Tesla had a very strong dildo in his pocket.
Malcor, I'm going to have to send
Oh,
you to horny
Jesus.
jail if you keep doing that.
All right. I'm scared of Warden Mari.
Years later, a magazine quoted Tesla, who suggested he could set the Earth's crust into such a state of vibration that it would rise and fall hundreds of feet and practically destroy civilization. On another occasion, he remarked he could, quote, split the Earth as a boy would split an apple and forever end the career of man. We've heard this before, because this, like his early laser device, would come to be an obsession for Shoko Asahara, the charismatic leader of the Japanese 1980s death cult Om Shinrikyo. check out our episode on it. Om Shinrikyo and Shoko Asahara were obsessed with at least 3 of these devices from his early life, his middle life, and near the end of his life. It's really fun. Now, the initial larger model also had curious medicinal applications. In fact, one unlikely recipient of the treatment it could provide was none other than the famous author Mark Twain, who would become friends with Tesla after meeting at the Players Club. When Mark Twain stood atop a platform connected to the machine, he instantly felt some relief for a, quote, variety of distressing and dangerous ailments. In fact, Twain initially ignored Tesla's warnings to moderate the time he spent on the platform, and very quickly discovered why when he suddenly became possessed of the overwhelming urge to take a tremendous dump. When his sessions were moderated, however, Tesla recounts, in less than 2 months he regained his old vigor and the ability of enjoying life to its fullest extent.
Without his pants.
If you're full of poo-poo that can't come out, you can't enjoy life. So the vibrations from this machine, they can actually make you poop? Can you shake poop out of someone?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Tesla's reciprocating mechanical oscillator, it vibrated up and down at a high speed, and you can find several clinical studies regarding what's called WBV, or whole body vibration, which acknowledge WBV as being an effective treatment method for constipation, among other symptoms. I'll throw a link in the show notes, or a couple of them, to some clinical trials about this kind of stuff, but these kind of whole body vibration treatments in clinical settings are typically induced through the use of a non-invasive oscillating platform. And kind of a fun fact is that electric or magnetic stimulation of the abdominal area are also used in treatments to relieve symptoms of chronic constipation. So it's not just physical vibration, it's also electric or magnetic.
It's stuff like this that with my band, we're called Revolting Sounds. We have a saying called rock your bowels because we want you to yourself when you hear the revolting sound. You know, that's what it sounds like. Everybody's just lost it.
I would say this is related to the brown note for sure, that a specific repeated vibration could make you poop yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're here to rock your bowels.
The technology from Tesla's high-speed transmitter is also thought to have set the stage for telegeodynamics, which uses vibration to locate ore and petroleum deposits. On the other hand, his oscillating transformer also could be used to concentrate enough power to melt metals. In fact, it was precisely these yet unknown future applications for his discoveries that spurred him on, even to the point of total breakdown. I am completely worn out, yet I cannot stop my work. These experiments of mine are so important, so beautiful, so fascinating. I can hardly tear myself away from them to eat. And when I try to sleep, I think about them constantly. I expect I shall go on until I break down altogether.
I feel that.
Me too.
Sadly, fate would force Tesla into downtime the only way it could. On March 13th, 1895. At all of 2:30 in the morning, a fire raged through his Fifth Avenue laboratory, which would destroy every piece of equipment and scrap of notes Tesla possessed. Tesla was, as the Electrical Review reported,
utterly disheartened and broken in spirit, Nikola Tesla, one of the world's greatest electricians, returned to his rooms in the Gerlach yesterday morning after reviewing the damage and took to his bed. He was not risen since. He lies there, half sleeping, half walking, half waking. He is completely prostrated.
Tesla told the New York Times, I'm in too much grief to talk. What can I say? The work of half my lifetime, very nearly, all my mechanical instruments and scientific apparatuses that have taken years to perfect, swept away in a fire that lasted only an hour or two. How can I estimate the loss in mere dollars and cents? Everything is gone. A reporter described the scene of the fire as 2 tottering brick walls and the yawning jaws of a somber cavity, aswim with black water and oil, were all that could be seen that fateful morning of a laboratory which, to all who had visited it, was the most interesting spot on the earth. Charles A. Dana, the managing editor of the New York Tribune, lamented, the destruction of Nikola Tesla's workshop with its wonderful contents is something more than a private calamity. It is a misfortune to the whole world. It is not in any degree an exaggeration to say that the men living at this time, who are more important to the human race than this young gentleman, could be counted on the fingers of one hand, perhaps on the thumb of one hand. Sadly, this allowed Guglielmo Marconi, the guy who plays the Mamba, a connected and savvy Italian inventor, to advance his devices and patents unchallenged in the field of radio transmission. Nonetheless, Tesla called upon his own special brand of black magic to resurrect himself from the ashes. When Tesla woke up each morning, he would remove his clothes and stand buck naked on his vitality booster. while administering higher and higher doses of electricity, which he boasted put into the tired body just what it most needs: life force, nerve force. It's a great doctor, I can tell you, perhaps the greatest of all doctors. As a strange twist of fate, Edison, his new fishing buddy, even offered his own laboratory for Tesla's free use. And before long, he was ordering new equipment from Westinghouse, who, well, they had gone as far as to charge Tesla for the equipment lost in the fire. I'm still very anxious to begin anew my interrupted experiments, he wrote to Westinghouse's Pittsburgh administrators. This kind of work is almost essential to my health, and I hope its resumption will have good effect upon me. The officials at Westinghouse promised the orders would receive their best attention, with the Westinghouse vice president adding sympathetically, I have regretted every time I have thought about your misfortune, that you should have met with such a loss. I'm very glad to know that you took off your coat and went to work again. The equipment would eventually arrive at Tesla's new 2-floor workshop at 46 East Houston Street, a stone's throw away from his old one. Tesla got right back to work on wireless transmission, but famously missed an opportunity to capitalize on some of the strange phenomena he was known to occasionally discover. Tesla had invented a new form of vacuum tube, which consisted of a single electrode that was powered by his high-frequency Tesla coil to emit electrons, which he accurately observed displayed both particle and wave-like properties. Tesla had gotten the idea when he realized his photographic plates were suffering a mysterious damage, and he would subsequently use the bulb to take what some believe were the first X-ray images of Mark Twain's hand, no less. Tesla called these images shadowgraphs. Not realizing the gravity of his discovery, it would be the German scientist Wilhelm Röntgen in December of 1895 who announced his discovery of the X-ray. Tesla would later lament, "Too late. I realized that my guiding spirit had again prompted me that I had failed to comprehend his mysterious signs." Nonetheless, he eventually realized the bulbs were giving him headaches alongside his assistant's severe inflammation and blistering skin, making him first to notice and publicize the dangers of this technology. So yeah, he was the first person to be like, X-rays will you up. Meanwhile, Röntgen commented on the impressive clarity of the images Tesla produced. Nonetheless, Tesla realized bigger, well-financed companies were beginning to play around with X-rays, and this prompted him to redirect his efforts back towards wireless transmissions. By the time Westinghouse flipped the switch on the Niagara project, Tesla had already moved on from X-rays and was now messing around with another revolutionary technology he wouldn't properly be appreciated for. Tesla called it telautomatics, and it entailed electromechanical devices that could be controlled or regulated from a distance without wires, and, as he supposed, given enough time for advancement, would eventually begin to think for themselves. Today, we call this robotics, and its application in today's world has long since proven Tesla's prophecies about its use. Anyone who's played Red Dead Redemption 2 is likely familiar with his first prototype, a radio-controlled model boat, all of 4 feet in length, equipped with a working throttle, rudder, and flashing lights. Until then, nobody had ever thought to do anything of the sort. Audiences who beheld the spectacle at the Electrical Exposition in Madison Square Garden of May 1898 were entirely mystified. After maneuvering the battery-powered boat through a giant pool, at one point causing it to dance like a water bug, he requested that a member of the audience ask the tiny boat a question. When somebody asked what the cube root of 64 was, Tesla secretly manipulated a lever under his podium, causing the boat's light to flash 4 times. "It created a sensation," he remarked, "such as no other invention of mine has ever produced." In shock, witnesses first assumed the boat had been controlled by magic, telepathy, or even a small trained monkey hiding inside. I'm kind of sad it wasn't a monkey, but anyway. Even the chief patent officer who received his application for said technology, presumably bowled over in disbelief, and quickly traveled to New York to see the device with his own eyes. Afterwards, he quickly approved the application. Tesla tried showing the device to military men who usually banished him with laughter, but even still, he labored to secure contracts with the Navy, declaring, "My submarine boat loaded with its torpedoes can start out from a protected bay or be dropped over a ship's side, make its devious way below the surface, through dangerous channels of mine beds, into protected harbors, and attack a fleet at anchor. Through all these wonderful evolutions, it will be under the absolute instant control of a distant human hand on a far-off headland, or on a warship whose hull is below the horizon and invisible to the enemy." He even devised an antenna in the shape of a loop, which, when installed inside a waterproof hull, turned the device into a veritable submarine drone, and speculated machines of this sort would replace human casualties in war, with nations opting to settle their disputes with robots instead. Woo!
Whoa, that's quite the claim to make, right? In 18 something, or were we in the 19? Early 1900s. Wow.
I love it, because in World War I, you had officers out there being like, we will gloriously ride into battle. Boom, 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 boom. Dead.
So that's also saying that Tesla, over 100 years ago, knew that we didn't need to send actual bodies into war anymore. His dream was to get rid of human casualties in war already in 1910 or something.
Yes, because on the one hand, you could call him naive. On the other hand, you could just say that most of humanity is barbaric, because he thought like, yeah, once we get robots on the battlefield, why would we put ourselves on the battlefield? You know?
And then it would be peace and war would be over.
That is always how he explained his war devices. So naturally, this would have made World War I quite a bit more enjoyable than it turned out to be. In one magazine article, Tesla would prophesy, we shall be able, availing ourselves of this advance, to send a projectile at much greater distance. It will not be limited in any way by weight or amount of explosive charge. We shall be able to submerge it at command, to arrest it in its flight and call it back, and to send it out again and explode it at will. And more than this, it will never make a miss.
Wow.
A UAV. Yeah, he was way ahead of his time. In fact, most of his patents wouldn't even get used before they expired. And then eventually people would catch up and start using them. Like, that's how far ahead he was. Like, the intellectual property laws didn't favor him in that way. Also,
It takes doesn't it take like 100 years for a patent to expire?
I thought it was like 70.
It's 75.
75?
Yeah, in America.
I'll be honest, I don't know anything about it, but I know that he applied for the same patents in different countries, and presumably they had slightly different laws. I don't know. Not an expert. Anyway.
At least when it comes to music, 75 years after you write your song, anybody can cover your song and make money.
Now, Tesla was being a bit naive because he saw drone technology as a way to, quote, bring about and maintain peace among nations, announcing in one interview, I prefer to be remembered as the inventor who succeeded in abolishing war. Obama's just like, watch this.
Yeah, if only he knew.
When Marconi tried strapping a bomb to his version, he failed to include separate channels on his remote device, which, hilariously, caused the payload to accidentally detonate in the back room of the exhibition hall, filling the building with thick black smoke.
Nice.
Meanwhile, Tesla's patent application noted that with enough independent frequency bands, which he called individualization, the technology could be adapted to any complex machine like balloons or carriages. Prophesying the advent of artificial intelligence, Tesla realized that someday these devices would be able to, quote, to perform in response to external influences affecting its sensitive organs, a great variety of acts and operations as if it had intelligence, and to follow a course laid out or obey commands given far in advance. It will be capable of distinguishing between what it ought and what it ought not to do. While publications like Electrical Review hailed the device as one of the most potent factors in the advance of civilization of mankind, others like Cyrus Brackett, a Princeton physics professor, denied it was even new technology at all, and it was little more than an impractical toy. So it's real hit or miss with this remote control boat situation. Although he was literally the first person to think of that. Like, oh, there's a robot over there, I'm gonna control it from over here.
It's like that meme that says like, oh, that motherfucker could astrally project, but he can't ride a horse.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, yeah, Tesla's out here making nukes and you're still throwing spears.
Basically.
Your claim. Your criticism.
Now, as remarkable as all these new devices sound by today's standards, Tesla, with the advice of his friends and critics, decided it would be most wise to focus on one grand ideal and attempt to bring it to fruition, which for the still young engineer meant breaking the ground with new forays into the field of wireless transmission. To achieve such goals, Tesla believed he would need to continue raising the voltage and frequency from his coils, upping his system's output to a heroic 4 million volts and generating a spectacle of 16-foot arcs of electricity from within his Hudson Street laboratory. When he did so, it earned him the success of detecting these signals over 50 miles up the Hudson River at West Point. Even still, this just wasn't far enough for Tesla. He wanted to, quote, bridge the greatest of terrestrial distances. And for that, he would need to go into the open and build something even bigger. But where? His answers would come in the form of Colorado Springs, which his patent lawyer's business partner, Leonard Curtis, suggested due to its charming remoteness, high elevation, crisp air, and dry climate. Curtis even sweetened the recommendation by by promising he could pull a few strings and get him free power at night from the El Paso Power Company. Tesla and Curtis eventually settled on Nob Hill, a slight rise within a cow pasture on the city's eastern edge inside a 60 by 70 foot barn, which would serve as an office and laboratory. Tesla then employed a local carpenter to design a telescoping mast that could raise a 30-inch diameter copper-covered ball up to 142 feet using a 25-foot tower to stabilize the mast alongside a retractable roof that could help the building from catching on fire when the giant arcs of electricity finally went flying. However, this was not what his investor/backer at the time had bargained for. Tesla had courted John Jacob Astor IV, formerly one of Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders, and a great-grandson to a wealthy fur trader and real estate investor to fund the project. The problem was that Astor wanted Tesla to devise a new and profitable lighting system, and, something lucrative and practical. But the wizard wanted to play with lightning instead. Originally, Astor had agreed to provide $100,000, but when he found out Tesla had no intention of ever working on lights, he stopped payment after his first installation of $30,000. Worse still, Tesla had stopped in Chicago to give a speech to the Commercial Club, an audience of the city's 32 most powerful businessmen, but uncharacteristically waffled the engagement by mingling philosophy with cutting-edge science and a disjointed ramble, leaving the audience, confused and unwilling to part with their precious money. But Tesla didn't care. He was happy to finally get back to exploring strange, cutting-edge phenomena in his new lab, and besides, the locals were fairly enthused to have him around. Unlike Marconi and Hertz, Tesla thought the key to wireless transmission resided not in the atmosphere, but the Earth itself. Tesla believed that the Earth likely maintained an inherent electrical charge. He reasoned that, if this was the case, he could apply a relatively small amount of power and, taking advantage of the Earth's natural electrical resonance, transmit electricity and messages through the entire planet to anywhere it will. A bold idea, to be sure. Now that the energetic pollution of New York was far away, Tesla could now begin to take more accurate measurements of the Earth's charge with a device called a coherer. Tesla would subsequently conclude the Earth was literally alive with electrical vibrations. Although the isolation and intensity of the sun's rays presented some challenge, Tesla found Colorado to be a welcome change of pace, recounting the perfect purity of the air, the unequaled beauty of the sky, the imposing sight of a high mountain range. The quiet and restfulness of the place also contributed to making the conditions for scientific observation ideal.
Champion fighters like to train in Colorado because of its high altitude, similar areas that Tesla is describing.
That's funny because Tesla was a pugilist after all. I wonder if he had like a boxing bag in his lab ever. Probably not.
I mean, that's physics. Fighting is all about physics. If you are a master of physics, you might be a champion fighter, right?
It's funny you bring that up because later in his life, he began analyzing fights and fighters and betting on like who would win and who would lose, and he was pretty good at it. Now, before the fun began, Tesla put up fences and intimidating warning signs. Then he got to work. Tesla and his two on-site assistants, Coleman Sitzo and Fritz Lowenstein, spent most of their days chattering away as they busily tinkered on equipment. Fritz and Tesla even spent their lunches and dinners together until in September of 1899, a jealous Tesla became angry after discovering letters from Fritz's fiancée. Regardless of whatever spark Tesla may or may not have shared with his assistants, it was nothing compared to the ones made when the experiments got underway, usually around 4 p.m. According to one local writer, his machines imparted the conviction that hell was breaking loose and belching into the building. When Tesla started up his strange device, it was said to start with a low rumble that would escalate into a roar that was so strong it could be plainly heard 10 miles away. Often, the barn would emanate a ghostly blue light as sulfurous-smelling fumes of ozone filled the air as the charged coils within spit fiery flashes up to 100 feet into the air. Naturally, this proved to be a bit dangerous. One day, when Sitzo had left to pick up some supplies, Tesla closed the special switch he had designed to handle heavy currents and went behind the coil to examine something. Suddenly, without warning, the switch opened and the whole room filled with streamers. I had no way of getting out. At first, he wanted to smash out a window, but there was nothing available to accomplish the task. With 1,000,000 volts beginning to break down the air, it was rapidly becoming hard to breathe, and Tesla had to crawl on his belly with 16-foot streamers arcing above him before he finally reached the switch. Afterwards, as Tesla recalls, the building had begun to burn. I grabbed a fire extinguisher and succeeded in smothering the fire. So he was having a lot of fun. Even still, Mother Nature and her Colorado skies were not to be outdone, and frequently, they let loose their own discharges of lightning, sometimes of inconceivable violence, as Tesla once put it. In one case, as he recalls, Approximately 12,000 discharges occurred in 2 hours. One particularly strong storm one evening provided a piece of the puzzle to Tesla's research that he claimed he would never forget. Tesla deployed his sensors, which recorded numerous intense lightning blasts as they hit the Earth, which then became fainter and fainter as the storm moved away. Then, something special happened. The signals returned and began to grow stronger until they gradually decreased again and down to nothing. According to Tesla, this cycle repeated numerous times, even as the storm had moved as many as 200 miles away. According to Tesla, this wonderful phenomenon was proof that the Earth behaved like an electrical conductor that reflected the lightning's disturbances and created stationary waves. Previously, he had been concerned that the Earth was like a bottomless well that swallowed electrical waves, causing them to slowly dissipate. Yet, this observation induced the scientists to conclude that the planet itself is responsive to electrical vibrations of definite pitches, just as a tuning fork is responsive to certain waves of sound. In conclusion, Tesla would argue, not only was it practical to send telegraphic messages to any distance without wires, as I recognized long ago, but also to impress upon the entire globe the faint modulations of a human voice. Far more still, to transmit power in unlimited amounts to any terrestrial distance and almost without loss. Thus, if lightning could create stationary waves, Tesla glowed, it is now certain that they can be produced within an oscillator. Tesla began blasting his charges into the ground, and according to him, he found satisfactory results. This planet, with all its appalling immensity, is to electric currents virtually no more than a small metal ball. Likewise, Tesla believed it was only a matter of time before he could use a large enough coil to resonate with the charge of the Earth and light lamps or run machines anywhere on Earth with just the coils. All he needed now was a bigger one. Back in New York, his lab equipment was capable of reaching 4 million volts, and it produced 16-foot discharges. Here in Colorado, however, Tesla wanted something closer to, let's say, 50 million volts, with the ability to generate 100-foot-long arcs of electricity. Much tinkering and modification was done towards this end. He upgraded the size of the capacitors, raised the spherical terminal higher, increased the voltage from the Westinghouse transformer, and adjusted the distance between the coils, giving the arcs of current more and more space to leap between, which they did with spectacular fury. One particularly notable outcome came on a clear autumn evening when Tesla boldly claimed he would attain the first decisive experimental evidence of a truth of overwhelming importance for the advancement of humanity. He even got dressed up for the occasion in his black Prince Albert coat, gloves, and a dark derby hat. After all, if you accidentally rip a hole in the fabric of space-time, you better be looking dapper for whoever comes out the other side. The plan was fairly simple. Assistant Sitzo would stay inside the lab and flip the switch. Tesla would go outside and watch the light show as millions of volts erupted from the giant copper dome. Tesla commanded, "When I give you the signal, I want you to close the switch and leave it closed until I give you the signal to open it again." Sitzo did as he was told. The current began to surge, and enormous twisting arcs of electricity writhed up the mast. A blue aura accompanied the sparks. Deafening snaps and a sharp smell of ozone filled the lab. Outside, Tesla gazed with satisfaction as his man-made lightning shot 135 feet from the top of the mast, and just as Tesla began to feel he had given Mother Nature a run for her money, it suddenly stopped. "Why did you do that?" Tesla shouted at Sitzo, but a puzzled-looking Sitzo pointed at the switch and it was still flipped. Tesla then called the El Paso Power Company and yelled wildly, "This is Nikola Tesla! You've cut off my power! You must give me back power immediately! You must not cut off my power!" The response from the power station manager was no less ferocious. "You've thrown a short circuit on our line with your experiments and wrecked our station! You've knocked our generator off the line and she's now on fire!" Tesla was upset for more reasons than the unfortunate circumstances of the world's best light show being cut short. While the switch was flipped, weird and wonderful stuff had begun to occur. The ground around the laboratory snapped as Tesla walked across it, his shoes insulated by 6 inches of cork in the soles. Butterflies swirled in tight circles above the charged earth. Horses with iron shoes bucked up on their hind legs, lightning rods on the surrounding buildings flashed, and water faucets emitted sparks. Most significantly, as represented in Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, a series of 3 light bulbs placed atop a square of wire 60 feet away began to glow. Tesla believed he had created an electrical phenomenon known as a stationary wave. That is, a wave with a fixed nodal and ventral region. According to the inventor, this had been accomplished by reflecting energy off a wave that existed within the Earth. According to him, by their use, we may produce at will, from a sending station, an electrical effect in any particular region of the globe. We may determine the relative position or course of a moving object, such as a vessel at sea, the distance traversed by the same, or its speed, or we may send over the Earth a wave of electricity traveling at any rate we desire, from the pace of a turtle up to lightning speed.
So he's kind of talking about like this planetary defense force that's like, hey, we can detect you UFOs. Any invaders, Earth's capabilities are electronic, and I'm trying to bring them to you. Tesla was all about like a planetary invasion happening potentially and being electronically ready for that as humans.
He was thinking places that only the NSA would dare to venture, and badly at that, in modern times, you know, like
way before the NSA was a thing.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't like this service and this in and that out. It was like supposed to be kind of simple. Like he's like, oh, I'll figure this out all through science.
It is simple. We just detect the enemy with electricity. He's not wrong.
Dude, one of my favorite threads I ever read online was like, tell us something that we're not supposed to know from your field of expertise. And one of the responses is like, I work at a huge cellular phone company, and there's literally nobody in the United States who understands from start to finish how text messages arrive at their intended location, and it's pretty much a miracle every time it happens. They're like, there's 2 people in China that really get it. That's it.
It's kind of old tech. Tesla already knew about it 100+ years ago. Phones are outdated. He already knew it was possible. And that's one person.
That's why it's justified saying we're still living in steampunk era, you know?
Yes. It's cyberpunk. We're still punk.
We got to get to the solar punk phase, damn it. That's the goal.
I want to live in a Tesla punk world.
Me too.
Nonetheless, though, the popular and practical-minded Marconi dominated the public imagination, having successfully sent a message across the English Channel from France to England in March of 1899. Meanwhile, Tesla, lacking any public demonstrations, boasted he would soon be able to transmit private, wireless communication around the entire globe. You'll be able to send a 2,000-word dispatch, he declared, from New York to London, Paris, Vienna, Constantinople, Bombay, Singapore, Tokyo, and Manila in less time than it takes to ring up Central. Even still, in the years to come, Tesla would claim the title Father of the Wireless, as Tesla had taken up the quest first, and as impractical as his critics accused him of being, he was the first person to realize you needed sending and receiving towers tuned to the same frequency to move the signal around effectively in a usable way. Marconi had to find this out the hard way when he tried covering the America's Cup race over radio when the American Wireless Telephone and Telegraph Company, an unscrupulous competitor, sent 10-second transmissions jamming Marconi's signals. As one might expect, his prospective clients in the military were very unimpressed. Tesla also remarked how regardless of whatever Marconi had done, it was accomplished with no less than 5 of his own devices. First, my method of oscillatory conversion by means of condensers. Second, the so-called Tesla transformer. Third, my apparatus for transmission of energy without wire, comprising grounded resonant circuits. Fourth, my method and apparatus for individualizing signals. And fifth, my discovery of stationary waves. One of Marconi's assistants even admitted, we knew nothing about the effect of the length of a wave transmitted governing the distance over which communication could be affected, which is hilarious. This guy didn't even understand wavelength. He was like, I can hear it over here, you know? Tesla would later be approved for his basic radio patent in the United States in 1900, while Marconi's were rejected time and again, both initially and after his appeals, until finally in 1904, he was actually given one. Initially, the two were friendly competitors that occasionally met to share secrets. But as Marconi became more successful, he began to avoid Tesla, even canceling a lecture he knew Tesla was to attend. While this may have been due to cowardice, it also may have been a sound strategy of distancing himself from a person the public had increasingly come to see as, well, a touch crazy. For starters, Tesla had become a bit of a hermit in Colorado and had done little to ingratiate himself with the public. He also made the seemingly timeless blunder of telling others that he had been communicating with aliens. As it turns out, his highly sensitive receiver in Colorado Springs had detected weak oscillations in the form of rhythmic beeps, which the Serbian inventor believed had come from outer space. My first observations positively terrified me, he recalled, referring to the phenomenon as something mysterious, not to say supernatural. Further still, he said, the feeling is constantly growing on me that I have been the first to hear the greetings of one planet to another. While Tesla tried to keep it to himself at first, he just couldn't hold it in when the Red Cross Society asked him about the greatest possible achievements of the next 100 years. In reply, he let it slip. I have observed electrical actions which have appeared inexplicable, faint and uncertain though they were. They have given me a deep conviction and foreknowledge that ere long all human beings on this globe, as one, will turn their eyes to the firmament above with the feeling of love and reverence, thrilled by the glad news. Brethren, we have a message from another world, unknown and remote. It reads 1, 2, 3. While the scientific community was not impressed, Tesla was not entirely alone in terms of making strange, supernatural claims about his inventions. At one point, Edison made the claim of having constructed a, quote, spirit phone that could contact the dead, and 25 years later, Marconi himself would admit that he had often received strong signals out of the ether, which seemed to come from some place outside the Earth, and which might conceivably have proceeded from the stars.
They're contacting the interdimensional demons.
And they were doing it before anybody else.
I like this particular piece of information because some people criticize modern ghost hunters for using spirit boxes or high technology to communicate with ghosts. And I'm like, no, dude, that was one of the first applications of these devices. Like the people who invented phones were like, I can talk to spirits with these things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of always been in the mix.
What is a spirit box? I don't know what that is. It's like a radio.
A spirit box is a radio that picks up random signals from across the spectrum, and essentially you can hear messages through it from the other side.
It reminds me a bit of divination. From what I understand, not an expert, a spirit box flips through random stations, as Mari said, and even if you're receiving signals from, say, random people or music stations, it'll flip in such a way that it'll make sentences and words in a way that would be improbable, right?
Yep.
I have no further questions. I get it.
I want one, but you can also just do it by hitting next on the radio. You can use your radio as a divinator, and that works too if you're, wacky like me. I'm kind of good at divination. That's my one real good magic skill. Everything else is like, noob. Anyway, I do have laser eyes. All right, let's continue. Tesla would eventually return to New York City in January of 1900, having felt the trip to Colorado Springs was a success, as he claims the goal was to perfect the apparatus and make general observations. And while many scientists were totally unimpressed, doubting his growing list of undelivered promises, many of the spectacular photos of Tesla in his lab come from this era, the best of which used some trick photography and double exposure, as you might imagine. Now that the light shows had concluded, Tesla returned to the East Coast with a bold plan to construct a giant transmission tower and establish a business around the electrical phenomena that he had observed in Colorado Springs, moving into the opulent Waldorf Astoria, the world's then tallest hotel, which not only provided complete electric service, but sported private bathrooms.
Wow, so clean.
Swag.
Yeah.
I like how even the fanciest hotels before that, you still had to go in the restroom after someone took a dump and be like, communal showers, what the Tesla would live there at the Waldorf Astoria for the next 2 decades as part of a deal he had worked out with Astor. A pretty sweet deal from someone he had all but burnt for a payment of startup money prior to leaving, and he would probably need it because he was about to blunder 2 giant opportunities. One of his close friends, Robert Johnson, an editor of the Century magazine, had gotten him a spot in an upcoming issue next to one by Teddy Roosevelt about policy reform. But instead of something practical or even palatable, he chose to rant about philosophy, moral hygiene, and the sum total of human potential represented as a confusing, nearly nonsensical algebraic equation. E equals mv times the 2 over 2, where E equaled the total human energy, m the mass of humanity, and v the velocity of human change. When Johnson saw it, he begged Tesla to make something he knew wouldn't repulse his magazine's audience. Tesla made some revisions, but it fell way short of where it needed to be. Worse still, Tesla had turned down a job with the United States Lighthouse Board in the spring of 1899 because the employers had let it slip that they wanted an American instead of the Italian Marconi to establish a system of wireless telegraphy upon the light vessel number 66 Nantucket Shoals, Massachusetts, which was, 60 miles south of Nantucket Island. Tesla refused on the grounds that he had resented even being compared to Marconi, whom he had since come to refer to as a donkey.
Damn.
Dope.
According to some historians, this was perhaps the biggest blunder of his career, as it meant turning down free money and fame to work on his passion project of wireless transmission. The problem may have been that Tesla was envisioning something grandiose and didn't want to waste his time riding Marconi's coattails. What Tesla imagined was the Earth will be converted into a huge brain, capable of response in every one of its parts, a feature we take for granted a little more than 100 years later with the widespread use of the internet. As unhinged as this must have sounded at the time, especially alongside his Century Magazine rant and the unverified shenanigans in Colorado, Tesla managed to snag JP Morgan's interest, enough for the titan of finance to drop him a loan of $150,000, the equivalent of $4.3 million today. What was little more than pocket change for JP Morgan made Tesla utterly elated, but as he would soon find out, Mr. Morgan was a ruthless negotiator. Once Tesla was salivating over the money, JP Morgan threw in a stipulation to the contract that would force Tesla to transfer his lighting system patents over to him as well. Tesla was clearly holding back his tortured disappointment when he wrote Morgan's assistant on the matter. I need scarcely say that I would sign any document approved by Mr. Morgan, but believe there exists a misunderstanding in regards to my system of lighting, which was not in the original proposition. Reminiscent of tearing up his Westinghouse royalties contract, it is clear Tesla had not learned his lesson, and in the case of JP Morgan, was not a friend despite the investor's best efforts to make him one. My work will proclaim loudly your name to the world. You will soon see, not only am I capable of appreciating deeply the nobility of your action, but also making your primary philanthropic investment worth 100 times the sum you have put at my disposal in such a magnanimous and princely way. But if you'd like to hear what JP Morgan did to Tesla, his friggin' enormous tower that he built near the Southamptons, his death ray, love of pigeons, super weapon devices, and forays into time travel, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the extended version of this episode, but all our episodes going back so many years, I can't even count them on 3 fingers.
You're gonna need a time travel machine to listen to everything.
I'll even send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, guaranteed to get you funny looks. And you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server where you can talk about the bizarre stuff you make inside your basement, or just send pictures of your cats. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew pew.